So another important part of the NAS is of course where you can configure the users and the user groups. Now this is fairly easy. For creating a new user you just can import users from a text file, or you can create a new user. I'm just gonna make one for myself now. I'm gonna name myself, let me think, yeah, I'm gonna name myself Hijack, and then just enter a password, just using the same password that I use on my computer, and I'll tell you why I do that later on. There you go. Next. Oops, I made a little mistake. Let's do that again. Might not be. Just like that, and that should work. Okay. So I made an account for myself, and I can set a quota management. You can enable the quota and access rights management later. So we're just gonna have me add it to the administrators of this NAS and then create a portional folder, yes or no. I don't think it's quite handy, but we're just gonna leave it like that. We're not gonna do that. And then we're gonna select the read and write access that I have. So we just select all the existing folders for now. Click on next, next, and finish. So this means the user account is created for me. Now what happens with these user accounts? Of course you can enter the Hijack user account and then enter a password that you never used before, but this would mean that every time you want to connect to the NAS you will actually have to enter the password that you chose. By synchronizing the password, so using the same password that you use on a PC, you can actually connect to all the folders without a problem, because you already logged on to your PC with the same password. So this is fairly easy. So let's just make another account to show you. Create a new user. I'm just going to name it Hijack2, and then just enter a random password just like that, which is different than the one from my PC. We're just going to leave the same options enabled in administrator group. We're not going to change this. We're just going to give me read and write access to all the folders again. Next and next. And finish, and then just remove the Hijack account, because otherwise it would let me in with that one. Now what happens if I go to the same folders? It should be prompting me for username and password. So it's really important that you configure this well, so it becomes a really convenient options. The same thing is for the user group. You just simply create a new user group, whatever you want to name it, NPC Club Friends. Let's just call it like that right now. Do you want to select the users belonging to this group? Yes, of course. I'm a very good friend of NPC. I add myself to it, and there you go. My group is created. Now with the shared folders you can actually assign these users and group to these folders, and you can do so over NFS or SMB. Let's for instance state I want to give all my NPC friends access to the multimedia. I would just go here, select the local groups, and then select read and write for my friends and click apply. It's as easy as that. Now for NFS it becomes a little more complicated, and I do recommend reading the NAS guide and the videos that we created about NFS and SMB on QNAP. So we're just going to select NFS and then allow read-only access to the whole IP range of my network, which is done by this little star in the end, so apply. So now my multimedia folder is configured, and all my media players can connect to it over NFS, and all my friends at NPC Club can connect to the multimedia folder, as long as they're on my local network, because I didn't share anything over the internet yet. Folder aggregation, you can enable this function to aggregate all shared folders into a local network path. So it's actually bringing all the folders together into a certain folder, I believe. And you can enable quota management for all the users and state, for instance, I only want users to have 1000 megabyte. Now if you want to have individual user quota sizes, it can be changed under the user settings. So for instance, if I want to allow myself a lot more quota, I can just select here that I can use 5000 and select OK. best option for the administrator would be to have no limit at all. So it's quite convenient that everything works together, and how you create users and group is quite easily done, and I like it about QNAP. For networking services, you certainly will not be shy of options. You have Microsoft Windows Networking, which is standard the workgroup or the domain credentials that you enter here. Now make sure for workgroup that you enter workgroup, which is mostly standard on Windows systems except for some MS Home operating systems. It works best for browsing later on. You can enable or disable Apple networking, and of course there's NFS service that needs to be enabled if you want to use NFS with your shared folders, which we did before. There's an FTP service that you can enable or disable, and this will actually allow people to connect to your NAS over FTP. Now all the folders are standard read and write access as far as I know, and you can enable anonymous user yes or no. There's a maximum number of FTP connections that you can set, and you can limit the amount of connections a single user can make, like stating you can only download 10 files at a time. You can also enable a transfer limitation. Now if we go back to the shared folders that we had, during the creation of a new shared folder there's nothing that mentions anything about FTP as far as I know, so we're just gonna make test FTP2 or 1, 2, here we go, RAID 5, hide folder no, log file blah blah blah. No, we don't do anything. We want access by user group, and the guest access right is denied, so we're just gonna give me read and write options, and there you go, we have created a folder. Now you can see we have not seen anything where we can configure FTP. So we can here click on this little writing block and then select that we only want to enable write only access on FTP connection. This means that this folder will actually be enabled to have write option to this. So we're just going to click apply, and that's done. It's not really the most easy system on how to configure an FTP, but it works. So Telnet and SSH can be enabled or disabled separately with using the default ports, or whatever ports you want you can enter there. It's quite easy, and we have SNMP settings that we can enable. The web server can be enabled. Let's just do that for a second now and enable WebDAV as well. Just click on apply, which might take a little minute. And then we have as final option the network service discovery, but we have to wait before clicking on that until the web server is enabled. And this is actually the UPnP service. Now even more important is the Bonjour, and the Bonjour is actually a broadcasting system. Now later on, when the v3.3 firmware comes out, there will be an extra option added here that works with the QMobile application that we already covered on YouTube if you're interested, because this server will support that as well, and this is where you will enable the QMobile service. So this actually means if you want to be able to find the server over Samba, AFB, SSH, FTP, HTTPS and UPnP servers. So we're just gonna apply the ones that we are certainly going to use.